everyone, and welcome to episode 249 of Retro Encounter, RPG Fans Occasionally On Topic podcast. I'm your host for today, Peter Triezenberg. Joining me today, we have Pete Leavitt.
Hello.
Joe Padilla.
Hello.
And Mike Sollosi.
Hello, everyone.
And today we're here to continue our discussion on Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga, Mario's first foray into the RPG realm on handhelds. See, I caught myself there. We're not.
Nice. We're proud of you.
This is not Super Mario RPG or Paper Mario Erasure. So up to the last point, we played up until the end of the Woohoo University.
Yes, I think it's Woohoo University.
Yeah, sounds about right.
Yeah.
We beat up Cacaletta, the Beanstar broke into pieces and flew apart, and now we gotta go find them. But to begin this discussion, though, I want to talk on something that we danced around a little bit last episode, and that's the characterization in this game, specifically the characterization of Mario and Luigi, the brothers themselves. What do we all think of how they're portrayed in this game?
I have a strong opinion on this. I think that the characterization of Luigi is maybe the most important thing this game does for Mario in general.
Okay.
Basically, Luigi is a little more than Green Mario or Palette Swap Mario or slow but runs in midair Mario in older games. But in this one, they give him more of a character than in any previous game to my knowledge. Like, I mean, what can you say about Luigi's character in, I don't know, Mario Kart games before Double Dash, or his cameo in Paper Mario that barely counts? Like, this game gives Luigi a really distinct personality that's very over the top, very cowardly, very kind-hearted, cares about his brother, always tries his best, but also has this edge is the wrong word, but has this angle to him where he is sort of very silly and sort of fake cowardly, but is sort of always there for his brother. Like there's a very warmth to there is a warmth to how afraid of everything Luigi is, that I think makes him sort of the heart of this game, and definitely influences his portrayal in later Mario games. And I think that's maybe the lasting legacy of Superstar Saga when you compare it to other games in the larger Mario series.
I agree with that. I was surprised with how much they gave Luigi to do, and how despite his cowardice, how much bravery he showed. One thing the game does in this later half that's pretty cool is they split them up. They split up Mario and Luigi quite a bit, and in some of the extended situations where they're split, I just remember, maybe this isn't technically true, but it seemed to me that Luigi was the one that did the most stuff and had the most action when they were split up.
Yeah, I mean, he gets that section. This is getting a little ahead of ourselves, but when you get to Fungi Town, and Mario eats the bad mushroom, Luigi
That's right.
has this whole little mini section he has to go through, including a little miniature dungeon. And yeah, it's fun.
And later, there's another similar section way later on in the game, near the end, where he is by himself doing some really important stuff. So,
Luigi basically gets an espionage mission towards the end of the game. There's not very much fighting in that, but there are more solo Luigi sections than solo Mario sections by a large margin.
And I think it definitely serves the game, because in basically every Mario game, regardless of how great or innovative that they are, there really isn't much personality for Mario besides like happiness and shock. And Luigi just is, from this game, and then from, I think it was a year and a half or 2 years earlier with Luigi's Mansion, it's like, well, we're not really going to mess with the absolute mascot, the player avatar that is Mario, but we're gonna make Luigi actually have a personality. we're going to make him this cowardly, he has this cowardice, but everything he does, he still does a heroic job. And so it's fun to see Luigi have that, and to be actually given a personality by the developers when, as was said, for the first 15 to 20 years of his existence, he was just palette swap Mario with a few different movement options.
Yeah, and I think you actually hit onto something. I think you did hit onto something there, Joe, too. Because Luigi isn't the straight man. He's not the face of the company like Mario. They do have a little bit more creative freedom with how they get to play around with him, essentially. And yeah, you mentioned Luigi's Mansion. This came out that game came out a couple years prior to Superstar Saga. There's a lot of references and cameos from Luigi's Mansion in this game, and you get that Luigi's cowardly angle, but also he comes through when his brother needs him, and still kind of starts earning more recognition for himself. And this is all done like at the beginning. Bowser doesn't recognize him. By the end of it, you've got people who are equally excited to see Luigi.
Yeah, he keeps being called Green Brother or Mr. Green or some other epithet because Mario is the celebrity and Luigi's the hanger-on. But he is specifically recognized a couple times later in the game, which I think maybe contributes to his arc of, hey, Luigi's a superstar also. That and I mean, talking about how he sort of always comes through in spite of his cowardice makes me think the cowardice is a little bit performative. Luigi will do what he has to do, and he will be there for his brother, even though he's afraid of everything. So the exaggerated reactions are again just giving Luigi more differences than his brother, where Mario is much more of much more stoic than Luigi in this game.
Yeah, stoic's probably a good word for it. I mean, Mario is still happy and jovial, but he's also and generally more willing to go into danger. Right before the final dungeon, when he's it's when they're oh, we need to, Bowser's castle is attacking from the air. We need to go, and Mario is hopping around, and that's the implication that oh yeah, he's ready to go, and then Luigi's no. Just little things like that do a lot of fleshing out the Mario Brothers as characters, which is just something you don't see very often, because they're usually just like we've been saying, player avatars. I think that's a really good point you guys have all made. And the other characters get a lot of really fun attention, too. We mentioned last episode Cackaletta, Fawful, Prince Peasley, Queen Bean, all these original characters. What do we think about Bowletta?
Those are some... I've seen some people on some on some devil's lettuce that had eyes less red than that.
The bloodshot eyes are a nice touch.
Oh my god, yeah, it is a nightmarish visage to see that. It's freaking. I don't know what it is about Bowser always having things and people going inside of him. At some point,
so much so they made a whole game out of it.
Yeah, exactly. They were like, you know what? We just keep putting things and people inside of Bowser. Why not just set a whole game inside him?
He's a large vessel, Yeah,
he is the vessel.
Yeah. But Cackaletta, she still has some pretty fun moments. I especially like towards the end of the game when she and Fawful are trying to figure out when Luigi's in disguise as Peach.
I was hoping, I was waiting for the maybe a later moment to talk a little bit about Luigi as Peach, because I think that's a very good moment. And
love the dialogue in that section.
The dialogue where she under her breath is Fawful, did you see that? Yes. It's very good. We'll get there.
Where they instantly get much more serious. But Luigi's Peach impersonation is excellent. I'm far exceeded my expectations. But
Luigi talks as Peach. It's incredible.
Yeah, I didn't know. I guess like all that hanging out that they did in Mario Brothers 2 USA really paid off because Luigi can really pull off.
Luigi can hit some high notes. I'm telling you.
I mean, Luigi's basically her brother-in-law, like at this point. So, so they spent some time together.
Hey, look, I played Mario Odyssey recently, which also has a little bit of Mario going inside other things, sort of.
Oh, yeah.
But technically, nobody gets married in that game. If anything, Luigi is the I don't know, Peach's boyfriend's brother that she has a good casual relationship with. You know,
he's dating her sorority sister.
Well, if they have a good casual relationship, I guess that still gives them enough time to hang out so Luigi can learn the ropes, just in case they have to do some kind of subterfuge.
They play tennis every Thursday. They go golf. They go Mario Karting every Friday, and then on Saturday it's Mario Party.
The party, yeah.
Well, let's actually.
But when is it NBA Street Volume 2? That's the question.
We gotta talk about
that. We should talk about it because Peach is in workout gear and playable in an NBA Street game. I want to do an episode on
it. I mean, there's also lest we forget Super Mario Strikers, my personal favorite.
We should probably pick up on where the game actually went. So after the Beanstar pieces scattered to the four winds, actually backing up a second, we find first we have our second encounter with Popple the Shadow Thief. I don't think we mentioned him last episode, did we?
Oh, we didn't.
Oh, no, and then Bowser as Rookie is
Bowser is Rookie.
It's pretty great. Yeah. Was it only the second? Because I thought
we encounter him once in Chucklehuck Woods, and then after in the Hooniverse.
He's in the Chucklehuck Manor. He's in the cola cellar or whatever.
Yeah,
that's where we fight him. Yeah.
Yeah. So Popple's like just kind of a stereotypical thief character who speaks with like a gangster accent. It's really funny. Yeah. Like you get C at everything at the end.
Yeah.
You do something.
Calls girls dames and whatever.
You're doing an Edgar G. Robinson impression, see?
Now,
yeah, it's like he's chomping on some kind of cigar.
Yeah.
Or something.
Now, one day, and that day may never come, I'm going to ask you to do me a favor, see?
Yeah. That kind of thing.
But Popple has found the amnesiac Bowser as his rookie. So for a couple fights, you fight them as a duo. And they even do a little bros, what is referred to in-game as a bros attack, which is pretty amusing. After we fight them, the Beanstar gets all agitated and goes flying off. Bowser remembers who he is, and then the Beanstar breaks into four pieces. We have ourselves a fetch quest, ladies and gentlemen.
So last episode, I predicted that this would suck, and I was delighted the extent to which it didn't. It was puzzly enough and twisty and turny enough to be interesting, but it was straightforward enough that I felt pretty good about it. And I just really there were a few moments. I mean, there were some things that frustrated me slightly, but really as far as fetch quests go, it could have been a whole lot worse. And the precedent for me on my experience up to that point was set to where I expected it to be worse, but it was a lot better. It was really it was a fun set of sequences.
Yeah,
I think they do a smart thing in not really wasting your time for 3 out of the 4 pieces.
Yes,
yeah. Getting the first piece is pretty involved. You have to do a bunch of stuff on this pirate ghost ship, and then you have to do go through a small underwater dungeon, and where you get some skill upgrades. Then a medium to large size overworld area that's I guess you would call it the Oho Ocean, just all of those dunes and ocean bits on the eastern part of the map, and it's pretty long getting that first piece. But after you do that, and you have the advanced hand powers, and you have the upgraded hammers, each of the next 3 pieces is like one small side quest mini game that's pretty fun.
Yeah. But we're actually getting a little ahead of ourselves, because you mentioned the hand powers. That's actually one of the last main power-ups you get right after the Beanstar pieces first split, but before the actual quest. but so Mario gets his fire powers, and Luigi gets electric powers, which is interesting. I don't know if that's a reference to something, or if they just needed a different element. In the other Mario games, he typically just uses green fire.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, but in some, but not all Mario games, Luigi just has different colored fireballs, but sometimes they're orange like Mario's.
Yeah, so this is a unique moment where Luigi has like his own unique set of elemental powers, and his are useful because they can cause debuffs on enemies, which is very helpful.
Yes, very helpful.
But after that initial section, we're alerted that Princess Peach is coming to visit the Beanbean Kingdom, and we have to clear out a Piranha Plants infestation so she can land, and so that gets taken care of. Pretty easy boss fight, all things considered, I thought.
Yeah.
But when she arrives, are you ready for the plot twist, ladies and gentlemen? Remember how Princess Peach had lost her voice to Cacaletta? Turns out she didn't.
Yeah, this thing was like, I mean, it was funny enough to be acceptable, but there was a brief instant where I was like, come on, Peach, come on.
I thought it was really funny, because it turns out that Birdo's voice was the one that was stolen.
Right.
Birdo in disguise as Peach. Yeah, no, Birdo's got a couple funny moments in this game, and honestly, I think they're all comedy gold. It's probably one of my favorite running gags in this game. But once Peach arrives in the Beanbean Kingdom, and we have, so far it seems like all is well. Villain is defeated. Princess is no longer in danger. We're gonna go on a scenic visit to a nearby Toad Town. I do want to get you in here, Joe, because you encountered what can only be described as a game-breaking glitch at this point.
Yeah, I don't know how this happened. So what had happened was that there was supposed to be, when you go to the Tihi Desert / Valley,
yeah.
there's supposed to be a cutscene that triggers with Peach, where she walks around the desert, and you're supposed to follow her. But I never got the initial cutscene, so I never got the initial cutscene, and she wasn't down any of the pipes. Like, I checked all the pipes a couple of times, and she wasn't there. So I was like, okay, and I reset the game. Well, I tried to. I can't remember what happened, but my game had the game restarted itself, which was really weird. And then I had
oh no.
Yeah, the game itself crashed when I tried to go out of the pipe and go back into where that cutscene was supposed to happen. It just crashed. So I exited the game, went back in, and just found Peach in one of the pipes. Just, she was tied up and she was just chilling there. But I never got that cutscene. So then I followed her around the rest of the desert, and everything was, on a technical level, hunky-dory after that. But yeah, it was just, it was super odd. Yeah, I had looked online. I hadn't seen anyone who had had that exact glitch, but
I didn't either. After you told us about it, I was poking around, seeing the list. There's like a whole list of recorded glitches for both versions of Superstar Saga, and I saw nothing about this.
I think I saw people encountering a game-breaking glitch at that part of the game. And it did sort of end the game for some people, so I was really worried about you for a second, Joe. But it at least it seemed to resolve itself with you, because there are known missed flags and game-breaking scenarios in this game, which is unfortunate. I haven't run into anything like it, but it does exist, and we have 25% of us to corroborate that.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the only technical issue I had with this game, basically. So it's just a really strange thing to happen. But it all worked out. I was able to get through the rest of the game.
It all worked out in the end, but that's still a pretty wild story. But thank you. I'm glad you were able to progress. That's, man, I'd be very upset.
I was, because with me, as we had mentioned, before the show, I'm someone who, like, if I start playing a game, I like to roll credits. Like, I don't like to just leave it. I don't like to leave it on the table. And
Just
so
like
when
Eric
that happens,
Cartman singing "Come Sail Away."
Sure. I'm a big Styx fan, but yeah, it was, I was like, oh no, am I not going to be able to finish this one? That's going to be upsetting. But it was all fine. It all worked out. I'm a trooper.
All worked out in the end. Well, that's good. Once we get to once we do get through the desert section, for better or for worse, we wind up in the little fungi town, which is where the aforementioned Mario gets poisoned, and Luigi has to go find an item to help him. Part of the story happens. It's also where Geno used to have a cameo in the Game Boy Advance version. Geno from Superstar Saga. We talked about this on the last.
Was his game in the arcade in Fungi Town?
Yeah, he was running the little that one little slide mini game where you like knock stuff into the Piranha Plant's mouse, which actually that mini game is kind of fun.
It's fun.
It's in general, I think the mini games in this game are really solid, but we'll go on a more in-depth discussion on those a little later on. And that's also when Bowletta gets introduced, bringing us to the Beanstar Pieces hunt. Bowletta has demanded that we bring... She's essentially doing a hostage negotiation type thing with Peach. Like, okay, I've got the princess. Now I want you to bring me 4 beans. And you better not try any funny business.
Well, but we try funny business.
Oh, we try lots of funny business.
So
shenanigans inbound.
The 4 bean pieces, just to briefly go over them, there's the one that you get from the SS Chocola. That's the name of the boat, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and the SS Chocola is a really fun little section. It's really short, really brief, but you have to free somebody everyone on there is dead, and they're all skeletons, and they're like the captain and the crew of this boat, and one of them drank too much Chocola Cola and is stuck in a fissure in the wall in the boat. And
yeah, it's surprising that they have a skeleton with girth.
Yeah, it's like your bones. You drink too much, your bones get soft and fluffy, or whatever they say. And it's, I don't know, it's kind of funny, but kind of dark and sad at the same time. Because he's totally cool with it. The guy that's stuck is like totally fine. He just wants more. He's not like bummed that he's stuck or whatever.
He's just totally going. He's just going with it. I mean, yeah, give me more cola. Delicious.
Yeah.
God, can you imagine the sugar content that's in that stuff? If it literally liquefies your bones.
So, utilizing dynamite in some way, you free him, but that blows the boat off the desert beach and into the ocean, where it promptly sinks, which I thought was pretty funny. So from that it's not there, it's the following sequence where you get the Beanstar piece, right? Or is it in that moment?
It's at the following sequence, because we have to go to Oho Oasis. Is that it?
That's right, yes.
Or Guahar Lagoon.
Lagoon. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Oho Oasis is where you get shipwrecked after Woohoo University and get your hand powers. Then Guahar Lagoon is the Oho Ocean region. That's basically a bunch of sand dunes, and also where you meet the delightful jellyfish sisters.
The Splatoon rejects.
This predates Splatoon, so I believe you mean the Splatoon ancestors.
They started it all. It's all their fault.
They're like spa, they're massage therapists. Like they're practitioners in a fancy spa in the lagoon, and so they see your hands, and don't your hand powers fire off on accident, and that's what makes them realize.
Yeah.
So they take you to go.
It's like that one bit from Final Fantasy VII Remake, except less accidentally horny.
Are you sure?
They managed to avoid. No, I thought they managed to avoid any horniness, which I appreciated personally.
In Mario and Luigi, or in Final Fantasy?
Yeah,
in Mario and Luigi. Sorry, in Mario and Luigi.
I was about to disagree with you strongly until you clarified that.
Sure. Sorry about that. Yeah.
You do give the Jellyfish Sisters beans, and they get very excited, but that seems to be par for the course for this kingdom, so I'm not going to rule out the possibility.
Yeah, you can't throw a bean without hitting a pile of freaking beans in the Bean Kingdom. It's like Mario's turning into a bean, you're looking for pearl beans, and bean stars, and bean shards, and...
I realized that one of the side characters was named Dr. Fava, and that made me laugh.
Right, all I'm saying is that Gigi and Mary are professionals, and they demonstrate nothing but professionalism throughout. So just to get through this section, you use your upgraded hand powers, which Mario uses his firebrand to burn Luigi's behind, which makes them dash really fast, and then Luigi uses his electricity to fuse them together so they can walk in tandem and kind of strafe and walk around. You use that to kind of get through this part.
Can I just say, I like the dash, but I really do not like how Luigi's electric powers feel to use with Mario, like how you move. And it makes those sections where you have to walk slowly between the big spiky rollers really frustrating for me.
They can get frustrating, yeah. They can get frustrating.
They frustrated me as a child. They frustrate me now.
And regarding suspension of disbelief, I have an easier time believing, I burned my behind, so now I run really fast, than I do, I am unable to walk sideways or backwards without getting electrocuted.
Yeah, that one's just that one is just weird. I don't get it. I don't think it was very funny. It's not a big deal, but it was just odd.
Yeah, and the Boo statues, I don't know if this is a thing in just the remake or in the GBA version, but they don't trigger the Boo statues, like, you have to be like looking away for them to appear. That makes sense. It's like a Boo, so you have to use the electrical power, so you're not looking at it, and then you can kind of hit the switch. For some reason in the 3DS version, I don't remember if it was this way in the GBA version, but I don't remember it feeling this finicky. There were a bunch of times where I thought I had it lined up and I wasn't.
No, in the GBA version, I never had any issues.
Yeah, so
it felt
I wonder if
pretty
it's just something to do with the new graphics engine then. I don't know.
Perhaps.
I was a little miffed.
There was a couple jumping maneuvers that I remember doing in the GBA that the same tactic wouldn't really work in the DS, but that was just a couple areas of there's a few parts of the game where you have to hit simultaneous blocks where Mario goes on a higher ledge than Luigi.
Yeah.
And because now I'm not sure about this, but I think it's partially because there's no sort of manual switching of the bros positions in this game.
You're right.
Yeah, and they only change positions based on what skill you're using. So I think having them move disparately felt more awkward in the 3DS version than I remember it feeling in the GBA version.
I agree.
But the 3DS version is still very functional and still very pretty. So I appreciate those upgrades. Especially I would rather play something on my 3DS than go back to my GBA SP, even though I love that machine dearly. And yeah, this part of the game, I think that the Guajar Lagoon stuff goes on maybe a little too long, just because it's the ship and the ocean and the lagoon and a slightly annoying boss fight just to get one piece, and then the other three pieces combined take less time to obtain.
Yeah, after that it's like boom, boom, boom. The only one that takes like moderately longer is the Yoshi movie theater one, which
isn't that bad. I thought each of those was maybe 10 minutes, while Guajar Lagoon was one of the slower parts of the game.
The Yoshi part, when it came up, I was like...
Yeah, you were pissed.
Yeah, I was a little bit miffed at that. I was like, are you serious? You're going to make me find 7 bean fruit to give to 7, or whatever it was, 7, I think it's 7 Yoshi. And, but it ended up being nothing. They mark it on the map. They're pretty easy to find. I did run into one issue with the GBA version where it's pretty clearly marked where they are. Like, they're usually in a circle of plants, so it's pretty obvious. But I ran into this weird issue. I think I had to reload at some point before I started, so I was going to the ones where I knew where they were, but so you have to hit Luigi with a hammer so he burrows underground, and then he crawls around underground and he pops up, and if he pops up where there's an item, then you'll get the item, and it's like that to get the bean fruit as well. And so when I did that, he was popping up with nothing, and I was like, no, are you serious?
Yeah.
It's the icons on the map. But I found out that you have to be slightly left of center to where this plant circle is.
Yes.
So I don't know, but it was just kind of this weird little thing where I had to like look up on the internet, and I didn't get any answers, but I just realized it after the fact. I said, oh, okay. So
the 3DS version does make the window a little more generous for getting those items. Probably because, that was kind of an issue. You had to be like in exactly the right spot to get the bean fruits in the original game.
It wasn't even like right in the middle. It was weird, but anyway, yeah.
I was expecting to be a little annoyed by these fetch quest within a fetch quest, but all the bean fruits are in a really close area to each other. They're all clearly marked on your map, and aside from one pretty straightforward mini-boss, there's really not a whole lot of hassle to it. Plus, I just like the idea of the movie theater for Yoshi's. I think it's cute.
It's very cute, and I did like this section a lot more than I thought I did. Yeah, it was fun. It was straightforward. It was fine, but it was still interesting. So
pour one out for the Starfy poster that they got rid of in the 3DS remake. Womp womp
Starfy.
womp.
Being a bit of a non-starter for Nintendo in general, but I also thought it was amusing that they make the opening menu of the 3DS version the Yoshi Theater. There's a bunch of Yoshis in the audience clapping for you. I thought that was a cute show.
Oh my! I like that visual, but that sound will haunt my dreams.
Oh man, no, I don't like that opening tone at all.
Because every time it starts up, I feel like I've broken something.
I think it's supposed to be like an impresario playing a pitch pipe to tune,
right?
But it ends up sounding like a scratchy fart.
Exactly. It sounds like, have you ever if you've ever had one of your systems freeze up and it kind of makes a
like loops a sound segment.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, my PS4 Pro has made a sound like that a couple of times, and I'm like, don't do this to me.
Sets your teeth on edge. The GBA version's opening tone, where it's just Mario and Luigi saying Nintendo in unison, that's adorable. Like, I love that.
It is.
I wish they'd kept that. You were saying.
So I was just saying that's how you get that Beanstar piece, but the next piece is another piece. I guess you can do these in a different order if you want to, but one of them involves another fight with the thief guy.
Yeah, Popple. This time you find him solo.
He's got some tricks up his sleeve. That guy wants to steal your items and your hammers.
Yeah, that can be a pretty frustrating fight if you don't have the timing down. If he takes the hammer, you lose your primary form of counterattacks. You just kind of have to take it.
Right.
And also during that bit, you find like a weird hidden village of snail people, and you have to fight in a coliseum. But the coliseum fight is like Pong.
That's right.
Yeah, it's like 360 Pong with electric snails, and it's maybe my favorite mini game in the game.
It's so fun.
Yeah, it's easy to understand once you try it one time, and it's very fun. And I used it to farm he beans for about 30 minutes earlier this week.
That and the mini game where Gino used to be were my go-to he bean farming stations.
Yeah, like after playing it this time, because I didn't really remember the content of all the mini games from when I played this game 15 years ago, but playing this one was like, oh, why was I like playing jump rope with two idiots like a sucker? This is way better.
We should talk too about the little puzzle barrel sliding mini game you play.
Yeah, it's the one that's kind of like a Match 5 version of Paneldepon, kind of, or Bejeweled or something, that except more awkward. I don't like that one as much.
I don't love it. It's definitely a little awkward to figure out like all the positioning. And once they start introducing yellow barrels, it's like game over, man. I can't.
And also, they just call that game barreling. Like, you guys want to barrel, or let's barrel, in a way that, I don't know, like barrel as a verb was a little bit of a head scratcher to me.
It's also another cameo excised from the 3DS version, RIP. In the Game Boy Advance version, that mini game is handled by a skeletal Donkey Kong. which is great because it's barrels. In the 3DS version, it's just a generic skeleton dude, and I'm so sad. Wanted Daddy Bones Kong.
Yeah, that was a mini game that I ended up brute forcing for sure. I was like, I don't want to learn how to do this elegantly.
Mm-hmm. I had no problem doing it, getting however many you need to clear it for the regular game, but I was not interested in ever revisiting it.
Yeah, they unlock it at the arcade later, and you're like, no, thank you. Joe, did you like any of the mini games?
They're kind of out of my brain a bit, but I like the painting one. Yeah, I did enjoy that because I like this sort of Andy Warhol figure that you had, who was basically just doing like the Frank from Always Sunny when he's dressing as Andy Warhol more than Andy Warhol himself, which I found pretty amusing. And that game was it was short, it was cute, and I like fashion, I like patterns, so of course I'm going to be somewhat into that.
Yeah, how else how are you supposed to communicate that tropical plus polka dot equals star?
Of course.
Fashion 101.
That's how it works. And you can't mix them. Like you got to make sure that you mix them together, or else you won't be able to progress. You got to get the star.
Yep.
And that's the last bean piece, isn't it? The fashion.
Yeah, it's the snails, the painting minigame, the Yoshi egg collection, and then all the business at Lagoon with the hermit crab that wants to be a Christmas tree.
Which I also
loved him. Oh, I loved him, and his entourage.
That boss fight is a little annoying if you don't know if you don't know that you have to set the tree on fire.
Yeah, otherwise he keeps healing himself. Like I just, for a while I thought I wasn't supposed to set the tree on fire because that makes him run away. I'm like, well, damn, now I can't attack him as well anymore. But then I realized, if you don't set him on fire, he heals himself. You just have to deal damage to him slowly and set him on fire whenever you can. It's that boss battle took me longer than it should have. Not because I was failing, more I was just sort of letting him climb back into contention. Yeah, did you guys find the rock and roll star that joins him, the hermit crab, on top of his tree later?
Yes.
I don't think I did.
It's slightly hidden in the after you get the surfboard. You can find a star with a guitar like, hey, do you know a cool place for me to hang out? And Mario and Luigi are like, think bubble, giant hermit crab. So if you go back to the hermit crab, the rock and roll star goes at the top of the tree and he gives you a badge.
Obviously, the rock and roll star's major preoccupation and worry is a cool place to hang out. I love that.
I don't think this is the most sophisticated game narrative or has the most complicated characters, but there are so many amusing jokes and amusing gimmicks that I was consistently surprised and amused. I know Joey mentioned in the previous episode how you sort of prefer narratives with more nuance or drama that are maybe and emotion, and Mario RPGs don't really have any of those, but I think if you go in with the right expectations, this game has pretty entertaining moments.
Yeah, I think it's just I mean we'll go more into it like when we do the kind of roundup. But yeah, it just wasn't hitting me right. But that's kind of neither here nor there for the moment.
And unfortunately, like all jokes, they must come to an end. After you collect all the Beanstar pieces, Bowletta sets up the meeting place for the hostage swap. Joke's End, which is the winter area of the game. You have to squash Luigi into a surfboard, which is amusing, and then surf over to the far corner of the map. And then you have this rather complicated dungeon with a whole bunch of different moving parts. You have to separate the brothers and move them and hit different switches. I'm not gonna lie, I used to struggle with this part quite a bit when I was younger. Now I kind of just follow the path and hit everything. You'll eventually figure it out. But for a while there. I thought it was to this point, it's probably the most complicated puzzle area in the game.
This was the kind of thing that I was dreading, but I ended up really liking it a lot.
Music's chill.
The music's great, and it wasn't like you'd get lost easily, but it felt just keeping track of. I mean, it wasn't even a matter of keeping track of where the brothers were or anything, but yeah, it was a matter of not much more than splitting up and taking one as far as they could go and then taking the other one as far as they could go. The only thing I had an issue with was there's a part where you have to move Luigi under a barrel that falls from the ceiling, and I didn't quite understand that I could move him while it was falling, and that would open up an area right in that same area. So other than that, though, I felt like it was pretty easy to understand, and I'm a sucker when it comes to these kinds of like dungeons and puzzles and whatever. I usually don't get it or need a lot of help, but this one was a lot of fun, I felt like.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty well designed. It does a sort of all is part of the whole kind of design where you're every time you do something in one part of the dungeon, there in one of the central hub areas, something will change and you have to revisit that part of it in a way that it sort of, even though this is an extremely 2D game where things are very chunked out into little puzzle zones, it made it feel like a contiguous structure in a way that's not true of every part of this game. And it does something, I think I mentioned this in the previous episode also, but you use the skills that you got at the very beginning and the skills you use at the very end all the time, and I appreciate that. So in Joke's End, you have all of your skills. I think you have to do Thunderbrand, Firebrand, and regular hand attacks, and all kinds of hammer stuff, and you're still using your high jump and your spin jump that you got in the first 30 minutes of the game. It's not like a Zelda game where you use an item in one dungeon and then forget it forever. You're sort of using your whole toolbox that you've accrued things in throughout the game for this late game dungeon, and I thought that was good. Like I don't love the spooky aesthetic or the icy aesthetic of Joke's End, but as a puzzle dungeon, I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah, no, I think I'm with you there. Like I've grown on that area, and you're right. Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga, that makes you you have to use everything in your toolbox, but everything is also clearly signified so you can readily figure out at a glance, this is what I need to do.
It's very clearly communicated.
It's just a question of figuring out how to do it sometimes, as with pizza barrel situation. That puzzle, at first at least, before you know how to move Luigi, like you said, sometimes you just, like, there's a step to this I'm missing. What is it? But usually they don't get much more complicated than that. I am a little annoyed that you only have, like, 2 dungeons to use the gold hammers in, but you can go around collecting some out-of-reach collectibles with them, which is fun.
Yeah, and you get throughout the overworld, there's those puzzle rooms that are usually like one small obstacle course or one tricky puzzle gimmick that'll have a Monty Mole at the end, give you some kind of small reward. There's probably at least a dozen of those. I don't think I found all of them, but just having puzzle-loving moles giving you gifts for doing weird stuff with hammers and fire hands is, I don't know, something that I thought fit very well.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you get to the end of that, we have the aforementioned Luigi cross-dressing scene. Move over, Cloud Strife. Luigi did it better.
I had almost forgotten about the princess switcheroo at the beginning of the game, but Bowletta and Fawful really fall for the fake princess gag twice. I don't know. They need to get better at just basic facial recognition.
Honestly, though, it's pretty great because so Toadsworth, how the setup that goes into this joke is great, because they give Toadsworth is like, the princess has undoubtedly tried to escape Bowletta. Here's a spare dress for her. Like, he's just doing the good butler thing. When you get there, Fawful isn't. You also bring a fake Beanstar to try and fool Fawful. It doesn't work. So Luigi's like kind of freaking out, and Mario puts 2 and 2 together, and they put Luigi in the dress, and Luigi does a perfect imitation of Princess Peach, and it somehow works.
He has his demure gloved hands covering his face.
Yes.
And the only two things that would have betrayed his true identity are that mustache and that giant honker of a nose he has. So he had to protect the goods to keep the illusion alive.
It worked for a while until they finally figured it out. And again, led to some of my favorite line of dialogue in the whole game. Fawful, yes, fire at will.
These two very over-the-top villain characters just suddenly become very, very silent and angry.
They realize they've been duped again, and they're just so done. They are so done with this nonsense, and I love it. Like, it's great. It works with the comedy tone of this game that the villains are just constantly being undone by these antics.
Then Luigi has to sneak through the hold of Bowser's refurbished airship to find the
refurbished. The thing is barely staying afloat.
Yeah, it's all held together by sheet metal and whatever. It's pretty cool.
And they make the very curious decision of having invisible boxes full of Who beans unlockable by putting electrical charges in certain places. Perfectly convenient for Luigi's gameplay.
Which is the game's way of saying you might need some stat bonuses because there's a final dungeon coming up.
It was really satisfying right before the first final boss to drink 20 cups of coffee all at once.
Isn't that just how all your final bosses work?
Yes, but sometimes the items are called sources. Sometimes the items are seeds. I have this tendency to being worried that stat up items will somehow interfere with leveling, even though that's very rarely, if ever, the case. So I always have just a pile of stat up items at the end of the game. But when I think the final boss is coming, I'll just eat them all at once. And I've done it many, many times, and every time I love it.
Yeah, I did the same thing, and I felt like Fry from the episode of Futurama where he drinks, he's continuously drinking coffee, and then at some point he basically just gains power over time, because they were just scarfing down all these cups of coffee.
Again, I'm concerned here. Is that not what's supposed to happen?
I mean, is that what you do?
Peter makes it clear that he just does lines of coffee grounds.
Yeah, listen to our 3 Truths and a Lie episode, and you'll find out.
Yep, you can learn all about Peter's relationship with coffee in that episode.
Was that also the bucket of worms thing?
Yes, in the same conversation, yes.
I can neither confirm nor deny that I was a very odd child.
Oh god.
But because Fawful and Bowletta are just absolutely done with the Mario Brothers antics, they decide that the only course of action is to go back to Bowser's castle and initiate a tactical nuclear strike on Beanbean Castle.
Just real quick,
yeah.
When Luigi escapes with the Beanstar, he uses Princess Peach as a parachute, and then a bird comes and cuts the parachute line, and so Luigi plummets to the ground in Tihee Valley and does he gets nailed into the sand. He falls, he hits the ground, and he falls through into Pawful's hideout.
Popple,
not Pawful. Yeah.
It's our final battle with Popple the Shadow Thief.
Into Popple's hideout. Excuse me, I'm mixing two characters together.
It's Sauron and Saruman, man. They sound similar.
Totally. And that kicks off another cool boss fight with his new rookie, Birdo.
Yes, Birdo.
Birdo's in love with him. It's adorable.
High-key would play a visual novel where it's just Birdo trying to romance a bunch of eligible Yoshis. Nintendo, cater to my very specific interests.
Birdo has a history of making unusual cameos in the Mario RPGs, because Birdo's a sort of a surprise boss in Nimbus Land in the Super Nintendo Mario RPGs. Birdo's always showing up when you least expect her.
Mm-hmm. And apparently, Michi and Popple are an item now, or it's a one-sided thing, which I don't really sure I like the implications of that.
I think they are, but I think that Popple is just hey, not in front of the guys. Like, you know.
I think Birdo believes they're an item, and what Popple actually said is that he steals items.
I see. There was a bit of a miscommunication going on.
Mm-hmm.
This is why you got to read the Tinder profile very carefully, guys.
And remember, just because she's nice to you does not mean she's into you, Birdo.
Oh my god.
Sometimes they're just a shadow thief and they're doing what they do.
Sometimes people are nice because that is what is normal and socially acceptable. But yeah, anyway, after that, it took me an embarrassingly long time to realize that you have to talk to the Pteranodon over in over on Hoo-Hoo Mountain.
I remembered that from the GBA game, but yeah, if you didn't know that was the only way you had to get to the final dungeon, and you didn't talk to Lady Lima, who has she has a one-off line of dialogue where it's like, isn't there anybody who can fly in our kingdom? And you have to put two and
it's
two
not
together.
obvious.
But that's your only hint.
Yeah, it took me. I was wandering everywhere trying to figure out what to do, but and then I either remembered the Pteranodon or finally made a connection, and I did the extremely stupid thing of going all the way to the top of Hoo-Hoo Mountain by myself. And then when the dinosaur was absent, I'm like, well, this is a whole crock of nonsense, and I think I did look it up. It's like, okay, where's the stupid dinosaur? Oh, it's in the town that I just strolled through absent-mindedly. Great.
Yep, they foreshadowed it. When you fly down from the mountain, he's like, hey, if you ever need to fly somewhere, and then at the very end of the game, you, the player, are supposed to be like, my time has come.
I remember that now, but I also typically play 2 or 3 games at once, so a wire got crossed somewhere.
I feel you.
Real missing.
Once we figure out where we can, that we need to ride the dinosaur that has only appeared once in this game, we go to Bowser's castle, Bowletta's castle, and it's another big labyrinthine puzzle dungeon filled with that requires you to use all of the skills you've gathered throughout the game. Only this time, the Koopalings are here.
Yeah, it's more linear than Joke's End, and it's mostly predicated on 8 boss battles before you face Bowletta, the 7 Koopalings and then Fawful, which are, I mean, in a way, the boss battles sort of are the puzzles of that dungeon, but it makes it fun. Like I really like the last dungeon.
There are a couple of navigational puzzles, but yeah, I would agree with that. And this is where I'll interject and just say, kids, if you're playing this game, make sure you do a little bit of grinding or leveling up, because I felt pretty on par throughout the whole game. But when I got here, I had like almost around 70 hit points for both Mario and Luigi, and I was getting hit for like 28-30 damage by even just by some of the regular enemies, but the bosses were doing similar damage. And so definitely, and the final bosses even totally worse. So make sure that you have your stats up, make sure you wear proper, make sure you get clothing and badges, and make sure you're a proper level and you have like at least 100 HP, and like definitely
play an RPG. Play it like an RPG.
Play it like an RPG, definitely. Even though you use your reflexes, play it like an RPG.
I only when you die in this game, they allow you to retry the battle if you want, and I didn't even know about that, or at least had forgotten until the final dungeon, because I made a few too many mistakes in one of the boss fights, because a couple of them there's a bomb timer, and you have to win in a certain number of turns.
Yeah,
and I forget which one it was. I think it was either Roy or Wendy,
Roy and Wendy.
Yeah, so it was one of them, and I made a few mistakes and didn't deal enough damage and got bombed, and like, oh, they let me retry. That's nice of them, and then I won.
From what I was able to see in the Game Boy Advance version, that's not a feature.
Oh, okay. So then I was just very lucky, and I probably need to save it for the fight. Yeah, but then in the final battle, which is in 2 parts, you're allowed to retry. Even if you win in the first part and die in the second part, you can retry at the halfway point, which is
that's the right
only
decision.
In the 3DS version.
Yes, and for that fight, the second half of Bowletta, which I don't know. You could call it Shadow Cackletta or Ghost Cackletta because
Soul. Cacoletta's
Cackletta's Soul. That's what it is.
You fight Bowletta, and then Bowletta devours Mario and Luigi, and then you fight like Cackletta's essence inside of Bowser or whatever.
That fight took me maybe 10 tries, at least 7 or 8. It was she deals a ton of damage. I think I was at a slightly higher level than Pete. I think I had like Mario at around 80 HP and Luigi at like 120 because he had a bunch of HP boosting accessories or something, and it was still a challenge. It took me a while, and I even had to just close the clamshell and put the 3DS down and watch an episode of Murder, She Wrote because my hand was starting to cramp from all of the Fire Bros and Swing Bros I was doing.
There's some pretty cool like attacks that Cackletta does, where you have to juggle an energy ball around between the brothers and stuff, and it's hard, and you have to like be focused, but it's pretty cool to even like look at. And
the swiping, spinning arms and the rotating fireballs are what I've found the most challenging, especially since a couple attacks will give you the heavy status, which adds some delay to your jumps, and I hate that. Well, that messed me up a bit too.
And what's difficult is that you start at 1 HP. You start that second phase at with 1 HP for both brothers. So if you
gotta use a max nut right away.
Predictable.
My favorite part of the game when Lady Lima and Toadsworth just make out on the runway.
Oh yeah, there must have been some kind of background romance that we didn't even see. Like that should have been a mini game where Toadsworth has to buy Lady Lima a ring or something. I'd be into that.
Tier, man.
It's featured in Bowser's Minions, the completely unnecessary and pointless mini game that is not fun.
Yeah, like they try to turn that into sort of like the opposite of a tower defense, like a tower autoplay attack. That's just not interesting.
Yeah,
and it's basically a Goomba finds a flag and decides to be a special Goomba. It's like, oh, this is the worst story since.
And they kept it for the stupid 3DS remake of Bowser's Inside Story that has no reason to exist.
Oh, good.
Even worse there. Yeah. So because that game runs at half the frame rate. I'm going to get there. We're going to touch on that at the very end. Yeah. So anyway, backing up. The Cackletta Soul fight, you begin at 1 HP after beating the first phase. It's less difficult in the 3DS version because you do have that nifty restart function, but if you don't and you're playing the Game Boy Advance version and she attacks first, you can be in for a hard time. It's a rather infamous difficulty spike, slightly mitigated by equipment that lets you move first, and items that heal both brothers. I
had so many Teehee beans that I think Mario just had unusually high speed. So for all those retries I did, Mario did go first, which was helpful.
Yeah, I will admit that on the Game Boy Advance version, I took advantage of a glitch to beat this boss fight the first time. It's not like a skip glitch or anything, but there is a very easy to replicate. Where if you give one of the brothers a pepper that increases their stats, and then they die, and then you res them with a mushroom, they actually keep the power boost, but without the limited jumping abilities of the peppers.
Oh, that's nice. That was so long ago, I don't remember if I used that glitch or even knew about the glitch at all. I did beat this game on the GBA a long time ago, but I don't remember the glitch. But maybe I did and I just forgot.
Yeah, that was just a thing in the GBA version. They fixed it in the 3DS version. So unfortunately, my hopes and dreams were dashed. But this fight is pretty tough. It's a worthy finale to the game. I think the music's cool. The boss design is kind of unsettling.
The boss's attacks are flashy and scary.
Yeah, it's honestly kind of a freaky conclusion to a Mario game.
It kind of reminds me of the final boss of Thousand Year Door, just because it's a, feminine shadowy blob. But I agree. Cackletta Soul is an unusual difficulty spike and an unusual moment of sort of menace that most of the rest of the game lacks.
Yeah, the first 4 Mario and Luigi games all have the first 3, I should say, but all have unique final boss encounters that are surprisingly epic for their genre roots. And then they just went back to using Bowser as the final boss of everything, and it sucks. Do we have any closing thoughts on Balletta's Castle in the final boss fight?
I really liked this was my favorite part of the game, because when the Koopalings first showed up, I was like, Koopalings again?
This is before,
okay.
This is before they were played out, though. Remember, this game first came out in 2003.
Right, yeah.
We look at the yeah, we have been well and truly sick of the Koopalings ever since the new Super Mario Bros. Games kept bringing them up. But this was technically their first appearance in Super Mario World.
Huh. Interesting. Well, the thing was, at first when they showed up, I wasn't looking forward to it, but I liked their boss fights. I liked the tension of the Bob-ombs, and when they had their clones and everything. I found that pretty fun. And then the Cackletta fight was definitely a difficulty spike, because I didn't have any problems with this game before this, and then this fight took me 2 tries. But it was fun, because you actually had it was definitely the showing of mastery of the mechanics that you had, and I was at that point like level 38 or 39, so like I was pretty well off for it. Yeah, it was cool though. It was a good kind of final gauntlet in some way. But then the ending was just like so brief that it was kind of frustrating.
It is a little abrupt, isn't it?
I want to throw something in on the last note about Balletta's Castle that I liked. I think for me the coolest enemies are here, which are the like prone sniper bullet bills that are using Super Nintendo Super Scopes.
The coolest villains, or the coolest regular enemies, I should say, are the sleeping fish that fart, and then you have to dodge a fart bubble going through the ocean. Those are the cool.
They throw their pillows at you.
They throw pillows. Yeah, those ones are cool. Those ones are cool too. I was just surprised to see like special forces sniper bullet bills. I was like, what? I've never seen anything like that before. But yeah, those fish that throw pillows are pretty good too. They are.
I like how each of the Koopalings boss fights was quite different. The first couple are sort of normal, but Wendy has you dodging these gravity rings, and she incorporates the clone stuff from one of the previous Koopalings. And then Roy, I think, has the most urgent Bob-omb timer, because he has a lot of defense, and it's I think it's the first time you hit one of those Bob-ombs. And then I think Ludwig even tells you, I'm just going to go all out from the beginning, and he just has a bunch of really powerful offensive attacks, but once you dodge all of it, he just loses. So it's like an entirely defensive fight. And then the last one, I don't remember if it's Larry or Lemmy or whichever one, is basically a tennis match where you play like a Ganon boss fight in a Zelda game, where you have to bat projectiles back and forth. Like each one of the boss fights felt different and interesting, and was, I think, equal parts a boss fight and a sort of a puzzle gimmick that I really enjoyed it. Like I thought this is a really good final dungeon, and also it doesn't. Your time isn't that wasted. Like I thought that Guahar Lagoon took me longer than this final dungeon. Maybe I'm misremembering.
That's not the case for me, just because I was under-leveled, but I think that's true, and I agree with you. This part doesn't waste your time. It's no filler. It's a good final dungeon. Those mini bosses were good. They were brief, but still challenging enough to be interesting. Some of them were. So I really appreciated this part.
Yeah, I think I had a higher level than Pete and a lower level than Joe when I fought the final boss. I'm pretty sure my bros were both at level 34. But I did struggle a little bit with Soul of Cackletta.
Yeah, I was like 35, 36, I believe. Well, I think that about wraps it up for our conversation on the game itself. We do want to do some closing thoughts on the game before we go. And I do want to touch on that. I'm actually real quick before we do that, though. I'm going to touch on. We mentioned earlier that Bowser's Inside Story got a remake. This was the third Mario and Luigi game, and the second one to be remade after Superstar Saga. The remake is not great. I think I've alluded to that already. And it's not great for really baffling reasons. despite running on the same engine as Superstar Saga DX, it runs at half the frame rate. It goes from 60 to 30. And I'm not a frame rate snob by any means, but the fact that the DS version of that game also runs at 60 is kind of weird. It makes it kind of strange. I don't know. A lot of the down visuals were kind of downgraded. Some of the minor changes they made just aren't all that appealing. And it was probably one of the lowest selling Mario. And you can already play the original on a 3DS. So unfortunately, it was the lowest selling Mario game. One of the lowest selling Mario games ever, the remake. And Alpha Dream wound up filing for bankruptcy shortly thereafter. Which is a real shame, because I think after our discussion on Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga, this company really had a lot of promise. And they, I think that Superstar Saga, in my opinion, I think this and Bowser, the original Bowser's Inside Story, are just them at the peak of their creativity. And it's just kind of a shame, that this developer that had quite a lot of early success really wound up not doing so hot at the end.
Yeah, and with that, I think this remake, I haven't played the original, but I think this remake succeeds in a lot of ways, and I think it's successful in kind of making a new art style, a new aesthetic for the 3DS. But from screenshots and gameplay that I've seen from the GBA version, I think I prefer the visuals of that and the sprites of it, and that might be because of nostalgia. Like I got a Game Boy Advance when I was 8, and I played the heck out of it, and I love the visuals that were created on the GBA. But I think something was lost a bit in these kind of more watercolor looking, sort of smeary, not in a bad way, but smeary graphics.
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely, I think the visual style, it's a little more homogenous versus this and the original Bowser's Inside Story, where they did let those sprites are still, were very expressive, very unique. They had a lot of enemies, had a lot of unique designs that we don't see. Like, just as an example, the boos in the final dungeon had this kind of goofy facial expression that now they're just kind of generic looking boos. This is what boos look like in the Mario games. Is that necessarily a bad thing? No, but it just, you kind of get the sense that they're reusing assets for these. One, again, and maybe it's just hard to replicate a game that was kind of all done from scratch. It's just there's something to be said for how they kind of went from this company that really gave it everything they had with Superstar Saga to a company that regurgitated a remake nobody asked for. I mean, the Superstar Saga remake is great. Like, don't get me wrong, I really enjoyed this remake, and I think of all the games they were going to touch on, that one made the most sense to bring to a modern audience because you couldn't play it on the modern hardware. The same can't really be said for Bowser's Inside Story, and even then, the mainline the mainline Mario and Luigi games were kind of on a perceived decline. Paper Jam wasn't very well received.
Yeah. I mean, you accidentally said Paper Mario, but the last Mario and Luigi game did cross paths with Paper Mario in a way that's sort of a cute idea, but not a great execution. I mean, pour one out for Alpha Dream. I think they got stuck in a creative rut where the first 3 Mario and Luigi games were big successes, and that put pressure on them to make more. And with a couple in a row not being very good, because I mean, Dream Team is actually, I think Dream Team's all right, but it's fine. It's too long and sort of not special. Then Paper Jam was sort of not great, and the 2 remakes did not sell like gangbusters. And I feel like they were trapped by Mario and Luigi a little bit. If they were allowed to have Mario and Luigi end maybe even at Bowser's Inside Story, and then have them try something else, they might still be around.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, as much as I love the art style of the 3DS games, how much more interesting would it have been if they'd applied those graphics to like an original IP, or I had said for ages that I would want them to make like a Super Smash Bros. Style RPG, all the Nintendo properties. I think that'd be pretty incredible.
And don't forget, the game that they made before Superstar Saga was an RPG called Tomato Adventure, about a boy in the Ketchup Kingdom who is the only person in Ketchup Kingdom who hates tomatoes. And
which I can relate to.
I have not played Tomato Adventure, but I am delighted by every single screenshot I've ever seen of it. So, I mean, Alpha Dream was clearly a creative, talented studio, and I think they got stuck in a rut a little bit, which prevented us from getting what we richly deserve, Tomato Adventure 2.
Yeah, pour one out for what could have been, right? Maybe that'll be our next Kickstarter after Ayuden Chronicle. Let's raise $3 million to make Tomato Adventure 2 a reality, everybody. But any more final thoughts on Superstar Saga in general, though?
Shout outs to Toadsworth and Lady Lima on the runway, making out when our heroes are about to depart back to the Mushroom Kingdom with Bowser in tow. I loved how they dropped off Bowser at his house. That was really nice. But before they took off, Toadsworth and Lady Lima, man, really, I mean, the romance, I've shed a tear. It's just beautiful.
Straight up macking on the runway. This game, I was kind of disappointed with it. It felt, from my experience with it, was that it was aggressively fun in a lot of ways. And that just didn't really interest me. And like I said, maybe I came into it with the wrong point of view. And it did get better a bit by the end, but I wasn't wild about the visuals. I didn't really find anything not that it was really trying to go for something thought-provoking, but I didn't really find anything terribly thought-provoking in the mechanics or story. And I think, like, my biggest thing is that this is a Yoko Shimomura game, and I, like, aside from that Starfield thing at the beginning of the game, I did not like this music at all. I did not vibe with it one bit, and I've listened to a lot of Yoko Shimomura. I've played quite a few Yoko Shimomura composed games, and I think she is brilliant. I think she's one of the greatest video game composers of all time, and of course, I'm not like the only one who would say that. But I found so little to grab onto with this, and at some points, I just turned the sound off. And I thought that was a huge problem, because even when I'm doing a grindy as heck game like when we were playing Tactics Ogre, I didn't do that for it. So that really soured me on it. I'm a musician. I really focus a lot on music and how it impacts my experience. And if that was happening, that's a bit darning for me, if we'll say that.
Yeah, I mean, I can see if that didn't vibe with you, that would definitely dampen the experience. I mean, personally speaking, I like the music in Superstar Saga. I think maybe the original compositions. I'm not saying this like to invalidate your opinion. Maybe because I grew up listening to the GBA soundtrack, and I think I like those tunes a little more than the remixes in the new version, which aren't. I don't think they're bad, but it falls into the Final Fantasy X remaster-itis, where it's like this remix music is fine, but I am familiar with the original.
Yeah, I think as far as Shimomura soundtracks, this is a weaker one, even though there were tunes that I thought were lovely.
You stuck with this entire series, and some of her final boss themes, particularly the final boss theme of Bowser's Inside Story, like absolute bangers. So
right.
Yeah, quietly, Yoko Shimomura has done the music for half of the Mario RPGs, since she also did Super Mario RPG. And I think that Super Mario RPG and Bowser's Inside Story both have better music than Superstar Saga, but, for a GBA soundtrack, it's pretty good. I'm not going to turn the sound down like Joe did, but I don't know. I agree that it's not Shimomura's finest work, but I think it's fine. But this was positive, fun nostalgia for me. I had the 3DS remake already, and I intended to get to it eventually. This podcast was the opportunity to do so. And the parts I remember liking, I still thought were still good. And I was reminded of things I had sort of forgotten from playing this game 15 years ago that were pleasant surprises. A lot of the boss fights I'm thinking of mostly. So, and also, I don't think this game really wastes your time that much. Like, it always has you going to the next thing, and you're sort of in and out in about 20 hours. I think it's a 15 to 20 hour game, perhaps. And so it doesn't waste your time. There's some very genuinely funny and creative moments in both the writing and in the gameplay, and I think it's worth playing. I on the GBA episode we did a month or two ago, mostly running on memories because I hadn't started playing this remake yet. I said it was one of the best GBA RPGs, and I think I stand by that. This is a really fun, really interesting game, and one of the best GBA RPGs.
So just because of my personality, there were some parts in the middle of the game that dragged me down and frustrated me a little bit, but I ended up being very positive on it. Once, for me, there was a material difference between some of those middle parts and the later parts, as far as how instructions and information was communicated and how easy it was or interesting without getting frustrating it was to navigate some of those areas. So I ended up being very, very positive on some of the aspects that I was negative on before. And this game is awesome. It's so funny. It's got really fun combat, and it's just about the complete package if you're talking about a handheld RPG that's totally different from most other things, and has a very distinct, strong identity, and won't waste your time, like Mike said, and one that you can dip in and out of in 20 hours or so. I love this game.
Oh, I'm glad to hear it turned around for you. And yeah, I mean, obviously my history with the game probably doesn't need a lot of explaining for long-time listeners. My old forum handle, and current Twitter username has been I Have Fury for decades. I have a lot of affection for Superstar Saga, and revisiting it has been a lot of fun. It's been fun reinvigorating my memory of parts of this game that I had kind of just forgotten about after so many years. It was a big old nostalgia trip for me. I think the remake updates the original in enough ways to make it more, just a little more palatable. I just love the flashy combat. I love the funny humor. I like how exploring the world. And it's an in and out breezy romp, and I enjoy. Sometimes that's what you need, you know. We need a break from our 80-hour RPG epics and just need to play something, for lack of a better term, something casual, something we can kind of just dive into and get back out again real quick. So yeah, Superstar Saga, I enjoyed doing it. I'm really sorry it didn't vibe with you as much though, Joe. That's unfortunate, but.
It happens. Yeah, sometimes you just don't like with people. Sometimes you just don't vibe with particular people. Sometimes you just don't vibe with a particular game. It doesn't make it bad or good, but
it is what it is. Yeah,
that's a fact. Well said.
Unless anyone has any more parting thoughts, I think that's about going to wrap us up. Next week we have episode 250 of Retro Encounter. So give it up. We made it to this milestone, fellas.
Woo!
Pretty incredible stuff. So later this month we'll be doing part 3 of the quiz show. We know you like those episodes. We know Mike likes inviting people onto them. We know that most staff dread actually signing up for them. So this is going to be interesting. Can't wait to hear what y'all have come up with for this one.
Yeah, well, some people are just cowards, including 2 people named Peter. Remarkable.
I 100% agree that my inner Luigi rears to the surface anytime Mike says the words quiz and show in succession.
But without the Luigi follow up, though, that's my case too.
Unfortunately, it's just pure cowardice. But coming in September, we're going to be doing the month of Persona, including a look at Persona 2 Innocent Sin, a beloved entry in that series. Looking forward to hearing everyone's thoughts on that. As always, if you want to reach out to us, email retro@rpgfan.com. You can comment on the boards, visit the Facebook page, Instagram, Twitter, Discord. We do Twitch streaming every day. There's a lot of different ways you can find us. Review us on iTunes, Google Play, wherever you listen to your podcasts. Give us feedback. It helps us make the show better. And we just like hearing from you in general. As for where you can find us, Pete, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at PeteBarbero1. And if you're so inclined, on Twitch, it's RG Halfpenny. Letter R, letter G, halfpenny. Like a half of a penny. Like a halfpenny.
What about you, Joe?
So you can find me when I'm not on RPG Fan social media, on my personals, on Discord, Instagram, and Twitter as @EvaLeast.
All right, and what about you, Mike?
I am most easily found on Twitter. I am @TheRealMonsoon, and I have a second account @Evoker4Dogs. I'm also Monsoon Mike on RPG Fans Discord server.
Evoker for Dogs never gets old. I love that.
So good.
And as for me, as I've mentioned already, you can reach me @IHaveFury on Twitter. You can also email me, PeterT@RPGFan.com. And that'll about do us for our game journal on Mario & Luigi Superstar Saga. Good night, good luck, don't forget to drink your bean juice.